Welcome to Boris FX Live, sponsored by Dell, NVIDIA, and Intel.
Oh, here we go. Let's go. Hello, everyone, and welcome back properly to Boris FX Live. Yes, we are back as strong as ever. My name is Ben Brownlee. I will be guiding you through today's live stream, directed as ever by the mighty Brian Fox. Okay, if you've looked at Continuum effects or even used them before, you've almost definitely missed out on some of the hidden powers of the filters. So some of these effects can feel pretty dense, but you know, actually when you understand the golden threads that run through them, it becomes freeing and creative. So I'm going to be joined today by series regulars, Nick Harauz and John Dickinson, to help explore some of these threads. And we're going to be diving into Resolve, Premiere Pro and After Effects to have a bit of a play. And if you're lucky, we've also got a surprise appearance from another product a little bit later on as well. Now, serious talk, I must warn you all that we are currently on bee watch. So what I thought was just some dodgy wiring threatening to burn down my house turned out to be a beehive hidden just up there. So at present, me and the bees have a bit of a detente, but if any point in the next 90 minutes you see me silently wielding a smoker or waving my hands around frantically around my head, you now know why. I'm assuming these bees are not killer bees from 1970s disaster films, but only time will tell. As you may now have gathered, we are live. Normally this is an excuse to answer your questions and comments live on stream, but tonight it actually feels like I'm documenting something a little bit bigger and scarier. So with that in mind, how do you get involved? Well, the good news is, actually, you're almost already there. If you're watching us on YouTube or on borisfxlive.com, you'll have a little chat box where you can tippity tap all your questions and comments, quamments, as one might call them, into there. And we're going to be reading all of those live as we go through the show. One other reason why you might want to go to borisfxlive.com is to take part in our competition. Yes, we are doing another Boris FX Live giveaway. All you have to do is to go to borisfxlive.com, scroll to the bottom of the page, and type in all your details into the lovely little box for a chance to win. Now, what can you win, I hear you ask? Well, today we have a 1-year subscription of Continuum. In fact, 2 1-year subscriptions of Continuum going to 2 lucky people. And if you stick around to the end of the show, we will also be pulling a 1-year subscription to Boris FX Suite out of the tombola. So the Boris FX Suite is everything that we make, including Continuum, Sapphire Silhouette, Mocha Pro, Crumple Pop, Synthize. I've said Sapphire, haven't I? What else am I missing? I'm missing something else. Optics, of course, we are going to be giving you optics as well. That's going to 1 lucky winner at the end. So what I would like to do now is talk about our sponsors. So if we're definitely there, I want to say thank you to all of our sponsors who I know by name, NVIDIA, Dell and Intel. Thank you very much for providing the technology that makes these live streams happen, but not the meat technology that's actually pushing the buttons. So thank you very much to Dell. Conquer the complexity of AI with Dell Precision. Power your passion and purpose with NVIDIA RTX GPUs. And yes, I do have my lovely Dell Precision laptop right next to me here. She is a workhorse. All right, thank you very much to all of our sponsors. Now, of course, if you are so inclined, I would suggest you follow us on what is known as the socials. You already know we're on YouTube. We got a lot of stuff on YouTube, but we also have Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter X. And of course, if you are, oh my cry, oh, okay, goodness. If you are of a younger generation who likes these sorts of graphics, come and join us on Discord at www.borisfxdiscord.com. We have an active and growing community there. Please come and be one of the first 10,000 on the Boris FX Discord channel. And John, when you're watching this later, please give us a lovely Discord graphic so I never have to see that again. Right, onwards and upwards. All right, well, let's introduce my very first guest today. There's no one who I'd rather be talking Continuum with, Mr. Nick Harauz. Hello and welcome to Boris FX Live.
Hey Ben, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, you're always welcome. In fact, you're not always welcome. You just happen to be welcome today. But yes. Thank you for turning up. Who are you and what do you do?
I'm the director of marketing for Continuum, and I do quite a bit of things with Continuum in general, and everywhere from tutorials to participating in live streams, and something else we'll talk about later, which is a podcast that we have here at Boris FX as well.
And people might also see your work if they're using Continuum at the moment. You are a big maker of some of the presets as well. So I'm sure we'll see your name on some of the presets as we scroll through them today.
Yes, no, the preset library, especially within the effects editor, split between the amazing team here, John Dickinson, yourself too, Ben, in making these presets for each release, as well as Peter McCauley. We have quite a great collection. Hopefully we'll be able to see some as well as we dive into unlocking this beast.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to be focused on Continuum for the whole show. If people don't know what Continuum is, how would you describe it? You don't have to use 3 words or less. You can, but keep it to under a minute.
I will keep it under a minute. I would describe it as a massive collection of 350 effects that allows you to tap into creativity as it comes to content creation, broadcast, VFX, you name it. And I think, what really appeals to me about this specific live stream that we're covering is a lot of times on these shows, we cover new features within a given product, but it's ever so often we forget what's actually inside or what was released before that. So this really gives us a chance to dive into some of the nuances of Continuum that have come out over the last few releases, and as well as just been there since it first came out.
I mean, this has been my sort of thing. I had a series that was called like the Continuum Golden Threads, which was like really some of the things that went all the way through different plugins, because that's something that's really important to think about with Continuum. It's not just an effect. It's an effect where you've got other built-in modules that let you do more just in a single effect. So like a blur isn't just a blur. There's a big difference between your host blur and the Continuum blur, or the host keyer and the Continuum keyer. We're going to be taking a look at some of those, I hope.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly, Ben. When you see something like a blur, or I'll just name one effect here, atmospheric glow, it's has so many different modules and components to that specific effect that it extends the possibilities, which is available in most NLEs, that then allows you to heighten your work. And I say NLEs, nonlinear editors, but also even inside of motion graphics as well and VFX work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, shall we have a little look at this then? Do you have the technology?
I do.
Is what
I
I'm
actually
trying to
have
say.
something prepared. I thought what we would do is
That's a
take
surprise.
I know I got the memo the other day, but I do have something prepared in taking a look at a common thread line to many Continuum effects, and I think is a bit of a secret sauce, which we're going to call PixelChooser. And you can think of PixelChooser as a gateway to Mocha, because Mocha is included in Boris FX Continuum and allows you to mask in several effects, but also for the effects that you needed to also tap into position-based tracking. But PixelChooser itself isn't just Mocha. It has this secret ingredient of allowing you to mask or limit effects to specific regions of your frame, even using color information such as luminance or tapping into a specific color channel. So I thought we would take a look at a couple examples. I'm going to show this inside of Premiere Pro, but many of the things that I'll show today can be worked in within any of the hosts. And let's start off by adding a touch of a gradient to the sky here and seeing the different ways that we can limit that. So I'm going to head to my effects tab in Premiere Pro over here to the left. And inside the BCC grads and tints category, I have a number of BCC plus effects. But this time I'm just going to choose colorize gradient. I'm going to drag and drop it onto the clip. And then I'll head over to my effect controls. As you can see, this gradient right now is overwhelming the entire frame. I'm going to tap into some on-screen controls, as well as make a few changes by utilizing another preset that would make the sky look better in this case. So I'll head into the effects editor by tapping on the badge at the top of the effect. And this is just a great way of you being able to preview presets, not to mention do before and after comparisons. So on the left-hand side are my presets, different types of sky gradients. I do like this dramatic red sky with a neutral density filter here. And you'll notice that as I go over the viewer, I get these on-screen controls, which allow me to move around this gradient within the frame. So I can control the position of the gradient, but also how much it extends, as well as how much it feathers off on each end, which is really handy. The controls that I'm using, these adjustments, if we take a closer look at the grad section of the parameters, which is on the right-hand side, you'll see that as I move these around, those parameters update. Now, several times when I come in here and make adjustments to a gradient, a color, and this carries over to every single effect that's in Continuum, all of this can be saved with a preset. And, Ben, I know that you do a lot of work inside of DaVinci Resolve. I think one of the handiest things is for me to be able to save this preset. It's a lightweight XML file, and then you can open this up and do some finalization with it. So
yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's one of the things when we should actually do a full kind of conforming webinar or live stream at some point, because I think that's actually really interesting to see, just like how you transfer full edits between NLEs.
Yeah, it's a great thing that you can do with not only Boris FX Continuum, but Sapphire as well, where we can share these presets cross-platform and continue that workflow and not be restricted by a specific application that we might be working with most of the time, and extend our workflow that way. So in making these adjustments here, just point out one more thing. I've got a side-by-side comparison. So here's the original shot, and here's the shot with the gradient. I can even take a screenshot of this. And if I wanted to try out another effect, let's say blue sky, I can then load up that screenshot and have a three-way comparison. So original, the current presets that's selected, and then my screenshotted red sky, which is exactly what we're going to use in this instance. So once I apply this, I'll bring this back into the host. And I did want to make mention, recently, for all our BCC plus effects, we've added a compare mode that you can activate in the host if you didn't want to go to the effects editor in the first place. So in this case, I'll just activate this and do a side-by-side comparison. On the left, we have the original shot, and on the right, we have the gradient. But, I have somewhat of a problem still here with the gradient. Like it's nicely placed within the sky, but I would prefer to not have it over the subject's face in this case. And in fact, just sort of light wrapped around the edges of her body and her face. And this is where that PixelChooser Mocha section comes into play. And at the top of every BCC Plus effect, you'll see this Mocha mask and track section. If I twirl that down, and I'll just make this full frame so we can see it a bit better. Here's your gateway to Mocha, a Mocha mask in this instance. And here's PixelChooser. And PixelChooser has several sections. So if you didn't want to go into a Mocha mask, we have some very basic masks that you can also activate. So I'll just turn this on. And for now, just choose a very simple rectangle-based map. I want you to see that the gradient right now is limited to this rectangle on the screen. And if I click on the View Mask button, you'll see that that's where it's limited to. Now, it's not going to get the job done in this case, but we can even take it a step further with additional shapes and an entire gradient section, which I'll show you in another example in just a moment. I'm going to click on the Mocha Mask button in this case, and then switch out the rectangle shape in a second, just to say that you have access to this here, and I'm in the Essentials workspace, and I've got a number of tools that I can utilize to create a mask around my subject so that she doesn't become affected by that gradient filter. In this case, just based on the edges, I'm going to choose the magnetic spline tool. I love this tool for tracking along the edges, especially where there's contrast. One big note is the fact that it does leave a lot of points. And sometimes if you want to simplify the shapes that you're working with in Mocha, just to speed up the overall mask and track process. So I just double click to close out the shape. As I mentioned, I might want to select a few of these points and then just delete them from the Mocha mask. And by the way, I can, of course, use my mouse to select several points and then press delete if that's what I needed to do just to speed up this workflow. So I have pretty much the shape that I want. I could have gone even a little bit looser in this example. And I'm just going to draw your attention over to the left where I have a layer and then the options that I'm going to use to track. If I just use move my playhead, there's not a lot of movement of the subject, which allows me to get away with the current mask plane that I've identified and not having to break this up into various sections. So I'll choose to actually just track the translation, scale, and rotation. I could probably get away with just translation. And over here, just underneath that, is my ability to track both forward and backward. I'll track this backward. We can see that it's now tracked those frames. So I'll probably want to make some adjustments around the subject's hair. And then I'll grab my playhead, go back to the original point here, and then just track this forward.
While that's doing that, Nick,
Yep.
can we track multiple shapes simultaneously as well?
Yes, you can. You can track multiple shapes. You can actually attach shapes, which is another powerful workflow. A lot of times you'll have something that is very specific, but there'll be something easier to track that you don't have to identify, so you can link them up too, which I think can provide you with a very powerful workflow in many cases, especially depending on what you're looking to limit your effect to within a mask or outside of a mask in this case. So I have what I want in this instance. So I'm just going to close down Mocha. I'm going to press save. And I think an important point to walk away with right now is not only can we save presets like I mentioned earlier, but we can also share Mocha data between effects. So if we wanted to not have to go through a tracking process again and add an additional gradient or something else to make a pretty sky, we could easily do that. Share Mocha, that tracking data from inside of Mocha, saving that file and importing it into another continuum-based effect. So I don't have exactly what I want in this case. In fact, the mask itself, if I make the program monitor big, is limited to the subject, and I want the exact opposite. So inside the host, what I'll do is I've already twirled down the mask section, which is now referencing the Mocha spline, and I'll just simply check this invert checkbox. And now I have a feather. I also have control over the scale mask that I could do. I could always go back inside of Mocha to make changes too, just to increase the scale of that mask so it doesn't affect the edges as much in this case. But here, that gateway between PixelChooser, having that and using masks to control the region that the gradient shows at, mixed with the on-screen controls, presents a very powerful workflow. Now, quickly, I just want to show one more instance of PixelChooser through another effect setup. And you might not be able to see this clearly, but I want to make this full frame to show you I have some text that is conflicting with the background here. It's just white. And this is mostly because the background is very contrasty, not to mention this bright spot. I wanted to mention that the text is actually utilizing position data from the shot, courtesy of an effect inside of Continuum called Corner Pin Studio. And I kind of cheated with Corner Pin, where I just kept the corner by itself. In fact, if I just hop into this setup really quickly, I didn't make any adjustments to the corner pin, and just utilized some data here of the basketball net inside the main sequence to get the position and rotation data of the net so that it was integrated a bit better in the shot, and did this right inside of Premiere Pro, which is really nice. In this case, what I want to do is not have this conflict with the background. I'm going to do a search for an effect called grunge, which is available in the stylized category, and apply that to the basketball shot. Now, this grunge filter has several textures that you can reference inside of this and combine this with color and different effects that you can utilize. And one way to kind of take a look at the base texture is to use these up and down arrows, which are just below the BCC grunge effect inside of effect controls. Now, obviously, I don't want this grunge as is to take up the entire screen. So what I will do is use PixelChooser that we just saw and use a gradient to limit it to the right-hand side of the frame. Trying to find a texture that I like here by using these little arrows. We'll use this one for now, and I'll head to PixelChooser, in this case, at the bottom of the effect. I'll turn it on. Like before, we have access to Mocha, but in this case, I can bypass that. I'll head over to Mask, and in the Shape section, let me choose Gradient Linear. And now we see a nice gradation of our effect, which is really unique in my opinion because it just feathers off or it tails off rather than a harsh ended mask. And in fact, there are a few different gradients to choose from. And we can choose the start, play with the start position. And then we also have control over the overall intensity of the mask. Not to mention, we can dial down the opacity of this grunge-based effect. So I use this quite a bit, not necessarily always with grunge, but other effects in Continuum, gradation effects to sort of pop text on high contrast backgrounds. This is a unique way of being able to show that compared to other techniques that you can get the text to be more legible.
Yeah, I think that's one of the important things about this as well, is that like as soon as you learn how to use PixelChooser in one place, it means you can use it wherever you find PixelChooser. So it doesn't matter if you're not using grunge in a particular instance, if you're using it with like a color or something. Can we have a look back at the screen again, Nick? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks. Yeah, so if you've got like a blur or something like that, you can sort of just layer that on top of that particular point.
Yes. Yeah. So all of our effect, like many of those effects, like blur, vignettes, also our color correction tools like film looks all have this PixelChooser built inside. And then while we've kind of talked about masking, there was just one other thing I wanted to mention, which is just color limitation, where we can highlight a red channel and then limit the effect to just that red channel. which is just a great
Well,
offering across all of our effects. So sometimes I've even had grunge mapped to a particular color within the frame.
yeah, that's really nice. I like that.
Oh.
I do have a question for you. That I've got a
Uh-oh.
question and a comment.
Yes.
The first one is, can you use your own textures with grunge?
Oh, that's a great question. Um,
Thank you.
inside of grunge, it's right now set to a use texture, but there is with the BCC grunge a load option, and as long as the texture is in the right format, you can use it. It's a BSP file. Now, this is where I'm not sure I think some of the additional textures itself, by the way, are JPEGs you can see being referenced.
Hmm.
So we can utilize that as well. We would just have to turn off the texture in order to have that be available to us within grunge.
Cool. All right. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Another one was someone, I believe it was Cola in the chat, wanted to have the ability to use depth masks with these effects as well. Is that something that
Ooh.
as a feature request might be possible to have?
We love feature requests here on the Continuum team, so definitely something that we can keep in mind. And I mean, I think there are definitely ways of being able to apply it. It's just not available directly in the effect.
Yep. Cool. Well, let's. I mean, a great place to add feature requests there. I'm going to give a plug to our forums as well. So if you go to forum.borisfx.com, or there's a handy link which I'm sure Brian will be able to show us at some point soon. But there we go. Alrighty, well Nick, are you gonna be all right to stick around for a little bit? I've got to
Yes,
I've
I
got to
am,
give away
100%.
some stuff. This is some of my favourite bits of the show. We've got a lot more to coming up soon. We've got well, actually, I think after this it's going to be me talking about BCC+Light and sort of taking some of those elements and kind of working with them a little bit more in Resolve. And if you've got any more questions, I mean, we're getting in questions thick and fast. So ask us live. I will be using my trusty post-it notes to write down the ones as I see them go past, and of course I will be being fed the best questions to come through. We do read all of our questions though. Alrighty. Yes, we are giving away prizes today, and if you want to be part of that, go to borisfxlive.com for your chance to win. Just head down to the bottom of the page and you will see a lovely little form where you can enter your email address for a chance to win. We're going to be giving away 2 copies of Continuum 1-year subscriptions to 2 lucky winners, and we will also be giving away the big one, the Boris FX Suite, a 1-year subscription going to 1 lucky winner as well. So if you want your chance to win, head over to borisfxlive.com, scroll to the bottom of the page. Full terms and conditions can be found right there. Alrighty, well, if we're ready for our first name, I'm going to hope that we are, seeing as I've stalled enough. We have our tombola going. Congratulations to our first winner. Our first winner is Alex Williams. Congratulations, Alex. You are walking away today with a 1-year subscription to Continuum. Well done, Alex. Oh, yes, we'll be in contact with you within the next 24 hours or so. I'm going to say we're going to be in contact with you within the next 27.5 hours to let you know how you can claim your prize. If your name isn't Alex and you still want to win, obviously, head over to borisfxlive.com right now for your chance. Alrighty, well, let's before we head into the next section, I just want to say we've got a lot of personal appearances coming up soon. Yes, we are coming up to more trade show seasons. So if you're going to be in Amsterdam for IBC, we're going to be there too. We are going to be camped out at the Dell booth in Hall 7, A45. So that's in September the 13th to the 16th. The whole of IBC please come and say hello. I will be there. I'll be happy to shake people's hands. Maybe we've got some good old swag to give away to not just lucky winners, but everyone who's lucky enough to come to Amsterdam and IBC. We will also be at Adobe MAX. And Adobe MAX is going to be in October, the 14th to the 16th. We're also going to be at the Dell booth, and that's in Miami Beach, USA. I believe that stands for the United States of America. I will not be at Adobe MAX, unfortunately, but our new favorite Boris FX employee, Renee Robin, is going to be there. Which one is Renee? I just don't know yet. There's only one way to find out, and that's heading over to Adobe MAX. Yeah, Renee is a highly talented photographer, and she is the new optics product manager. So this is fantastic. If you want to learn more about Renee, don't just have a look at the blog at borisfx.com, but watch her live stream that we did, I'm going to say probably about 9 months ago or so, maybe a little bit longer, where we talked optics. She is amazingly talented, and I'm really glad that she's now part of the Boris FX team. So yes, so if you're going to go to Adobe MAX, if you are in the United States of America, go by the Dell booth and say hello to Renee. She will also be giving a talk as well in all of those days, October the 14th to the 16th. Alrighty, well let's head on now to our next part. I'd forgotten what the next part was, but I realised it's me. I'm going to be taking a look now into another, actually probably the same module that Nick was showing, but I'll be looking at things in a slightly different way. So let's head into Resolve and take a look at Light. Alright, so here's our original shot that we're just we're working in here. And what I'm going to do is, over the next few minutes, we're going to be taking that from that into something that looks a little bit like this, hopefully. Or maybe even better. Who knows? Who knows? So there's a reason why I'm using this, or why I'm sat in the color page at the moment. We'll understand why that is in roughly 97 seconds. But I do want to say that continuum effects are available. We have a little look here. So all the BCC things here, they are available in the edit page and the what's it called? It's not the assemble page. What's it called now? It's the page that I should use a bit more. This one, and also the color page. The cut page, of course. We got the edit page and we got the cut page, but we're working in the color page here, and the reason for that is because the effects that I'm going to be using here need multiple inputs. And the only way of having effects that use multiple inputs currently inside of Resolve is inside of the cut page. Alright, so just to let you know, I've done a very quick, I'm not even going to call it a color grade. I've just done a minor bit of color correction on this so far, just to give it a little bit more contrast, and I'm going to start to take out some of the color in the skin tones in a little bit. But that's not the interesting stuff. The interesting stuff happens when I come into Light. I'm going to just type in Light here, and there's a lot of effects that are called something to do with light, but the one that I'm interested in is called BCC+Light. All right, and I'm going to bring this over, and you'll see. Let's just hook this up. And you'll see if I bring it over that way, rather than just apply it over the top of a regular node or a normal node, I get these multiple inputs in here. So I'm going to have my input A for RGB and alpha, and an input B for RGB and alpha. Alrighty, let's do what I always do. Whenever I'm starting up a new effect, I always come into the effect editor, and the effect editor is going to launch far too large for me because we're working at a slightly lower resolution. In fact, let's cancel that out and make sure we're not at proxy resolution. I want to be able to see this nicely. There we go. Cool. And so, as you can see, we've actually got like a ton of presets over on the left-hand side. Far too many presets to be able to make educated choices with just by taking a little look down here. So there is another way of filtering these up here. So if I know we want to have a look at abstract stuff or snowflakes, how many snowflakes we got? And I think we're back. We are back. Have a look at that.
Yay.
See, anyone who doubts that we're live should actually watch just one of our streams, any one of our streams, and stuff happens like this all the time. All right. So I was just talking about having a look at some of these new ones here, and like we can see that we've got like a whole sort of host of kind of weird and wonderful gobos, which I really like these. It's nothing that I'm going to use right now, but I just want to say I really, really like these. Maybe we'll talk about those at some point. But what I do want to have a look at is some of our foliage. And here we've got a lot of sort of different kinds of leaves and branches. And let's have a look at how that looks over the top here. All right, so we got something happening. Now, I'm going to come down and show you down here. We've got an edge mode, which is going to be really important for what we're doing here. Now, currently it's set to wrap, which means we're getting nice repeating patterns. So where we've got a repeating pattern, wrap is going to be able to wrap around and give us this nice look, sort of an infinite pattern. We can also repeat things. I'll talk about edge mode a little bit later. We'll just stick with wrap here, and I'll take this branch because I think this looks kind of scary and spooky. So Nick showed us Mocha in the last presentation. I'm also going to show you Mocha, but I'm going to show you something a little bit different.
Yes.
So when we're dealing with light here, or actually any sort of parameter tracking, when we come into Mocha, let's take this back into Essentials so we can all work off the same easy thing. Yeah, when we come into Mocha where we've got parameter tracking, we're already going to have a lot of this stuff set up for us. So we've got a corner pin layer that we could just use and track and everyone would be happy. And that's kind of good. But in this case, obviously, when we start to play through this, like just corner pinning the whole thing seems it's not going to work because we've got a subject in here, subject moving, we've got a camera moving out. So if we started over here, we wouldn't really have like a lot of that image over and about like when we come to the end of this stuff. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new shape, and I'm going to create a shape. I'll just do it around about up here somewhere, and I'll track in perspective. And one other thing that I want to do is I'm going to take my linked track and set this to none. So this is called unlink tracking. So what I'm going to do now, I'll start tracking this through and I'll talk about this as it tracks. So what this does is instead of linking the track layer and the shape layer together, the shape layer that we've got starts to act like a kind of window So as the pixels move through the window, there we go, what's going to happen here is that our tracking data is still going to be tracked in, it's still going to be applied to the layer, but the shape itself is just going to stay static. So this is a really, really powerful way of working with longer sort of tracking shots, or anything where the camera moves quite a lot, but actually the bit that you want to track is always in the same part of the screen. And what this lets us do is it sort of takes out all of the headaches of trying to chase like one particular area of the screen and just sort of like move it around. We end up with a perfect track. Let's just stop that there and just show you. So we end up with a really, really nice track that's properly smooth, but the shape that we actually were tracking stays static. So unlinked tracking, by far one of my top tips for working with Mocha for this sort of stuff. Now, if I want to use this together with the light effect, remember we do have this default corner pin that's already set up, this corner pin layer, and we actually have to use that. So I'm going to come in here to my corner pin and I'm going to link this track to my layer 2. And now as we have a little look through, it's using the tracking data from layer 2 to drive that parameter track. Now someone in the chat asked me what this blue box was. This blue box here, this is the surface. So this is really sort of the visual representation of what that tracking data is. So we can be moving the surface around anywhere we want to, but that, you know, without affecting where the tracking data is. So it's a cool way of doing offset tracking. It's a cool way of checking whether our track is working, and it's a cool way of course of setting up like where we want the inserts to be and all that sort of jazz. Okay, so I'm going to save that out and let's come out here, exit. And without me doing anything else, if I just start to scrub through this now, you can see that I will be using that tracking data now, applying that to the shadows. And obviously it's going to stop where my tracking stopped. But you can see, because we've got an infinite tile happening, it doesn't matter how far that particular move goes, we're still always going to be getting that nice kind of spooky little light effect here. Now Nick mentioned this already, that we can transfer Mocha data between effects. And just to show you how you would do that, you would just go up to File and go Export Project, and that will take it out as a .mocha file, like a regular Mocha file. You could actually open that up in any sort of form of Mocha as well if you wanted to. I'm just going to open up a project here. I've got one called Light Track, and this has got, hopefully, got all of my background track, pretty much the same as we had it before, but it's also got a little character mask as well. And I won't really sort of go too deep into how this was done. It was pretty much done exactly the same way as Nick's one was. This was really kind of quick and dirty. If I'd have been sort of thinking more about it, I would probably have split up the shapes a little bit more. So I had one for the legs, one for the body, and one for the head, because those three things are moving slightly differently. But I wanted to be lazy, and this is where laziness gets you. So we take a little look now at that. If I come into my PixelChooser, you can see it's not using anything with that there. But if I turn that on, tell it to use the Mocha spline, Let's turn off the on-screen controls there, and let's invert the Mocha mask. Now it's doing everything except for, there we go, except for our main character. That's kind of looking all right. Excellent. Oh, one of the things that's kind of nice, I think we've covered this in a different tutorial as well when looking at light. But actually, one of the things I like to do with light as well, especially where we've got a little bit of different depths going on within the scene, is not to try to do everything with one effect. So if I just copy this, let's paste this into a new serial node, turn off the invert mask. At the moment, let's just zoom in. This is basically the equivalent of using one effect. So it's given us the same basic the same basic result. But here we could do other things. We could like turn up the displacement, so it's using displacement within the image, or using the pixel values within the image to displace the light a little bit. We could also come into the gobo down at the bottom here and maybe just offset this a little bit. So I'd use the anchor point, why not? And then we can just sort of really have this kind of sitting just a little bit off of the background, so it kind of makes that, or wraps that light around a little bit more, which I think looks kind of nice. So that's a good one. I'm sure I've talked about that before, because it's one of the things that I talk about it a lot. I think it's just so useful. Now, I mentioned at the start that we had these two inputs here, and there was a big reason for that. What I can do with light is I can feed it a separate input that doesn't have to be one of our preset images. Now, if I come into my media pool just over here, have a look at my media, I've cheated a little bit. I have that same JPEG, the branch is 35. I've already got that in here, so I'll just drag that in. This is one of the really nice things that I was so glad when Resolve got the ability to just bring in any sort of clip from the media pool into the node tree here. It's really, really nice. So what I can do here is I can take my branches and I'll plug this into the background. I'll disable this for a second. And instead of using a gobo, I can set this to be my input. So it's going to look kind of similar, except for one thing. This is something that's a Resolve only issue. We just have to be aware of it. When we bring our clip in here, Resolve thinks this is the same resolution as the main video layer that we're using inside the color page. So if it's not, and in this case it's not, we've just got to crop it in a little bit. It's not a big issue, so we just have to come in and crop it, and then we can sort of I'm not even sure what the right values are for this, but we sort of just come in and we can, let's pretend it's there, and that will give us that seamless texture again as soon as we figure out what those values are. So we have a little look at that. There we go. All very nice. Now, I hear you screaming, and your fingers are just over the keyboard saying, well, why would I do that? Why would I want to do that? Well, the thing about having this as a secondary input is we can do secondary input stuff to it. So I can add another node, another serial node after my branches. We'll find something else. I'm going to use curl just because I think it's really nice to use curl because you can see it really easily. And we can just add in some movement within inside of curl. Maybe I'll make my curl size a little bit bigger or something. But we can, yeah, basically the idea is that we add in some movement into here. It looks nice and spooky, and we can animate this all up. And you know, it's something that is not just a static gobo. It's a gobo that's now suddenly starting to move out a little bit. I think I've actually I want to sort of talk a little bit more about this, but I have actually run out of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sort of come in and let's have a little look-see at what this other one was, the test one that I was doing. So let's have a look, just a quick look here, see if there's anything more fun in here. So we've got the branches coming up. Oh yeah. So I've got another sort of black and white area in here that I'm just using to cut out film stocks. Of course, why would I not use film stocks on here? I love using film stocks on everything. But I think that when I applied it to this clip, it turned it a little bit dark. So instead of doing all of my work inside of Resolve, I brought in a separate mask here. This could be a Mocha mask, so you can take that out. But in this case, it was just a rendered mask, and I think I'll talk about that bit in my next section, which is going to be a little bit later on. Let's have a very, very quick look at the. Actually, I'm going to ask Nick if there's any questions, because hopefully he'll have a chance to have a look at the chat there.
Just see the chat here. So there is a question, which is just, is there a similar workflow for this inside of Premiere and After Effects, what you were showing specifically with the input and then adding the curl effect onto it?
Absolutely, yeah. I can actually show you that in After Effects straight away. So if we let's have a quick talk while After Effects sparks up.
Yeah, and I wanted to just mention, like, those two effects, the film stocks that you showed at the end and BCC+Light, there's so much to explore in terms of presets. Like, I think Light is over 700 presets, you know, and some of them you're going to see have that edge mode, where you have the repetitive pattern, and some meant to be in a specific part of the frame. But then film stocks as well, it's close to that amount too, right, Ben?
Yeah, I think it is, and like they've both got like so many presets that I actually, especially with film stocks, I don't find myself doing much more than finding a preset and just tweaking the preset just a little bit, like turning it down a little bit. That's pretty much it. Yeah, here's that same setup in After Effects. So if we take a quick look at this one here, I've got the BCC+Light in here. I've changed my gobo type to input, and that's just going to a pre-comp. So that's what this pre-comp looks like. Looks like this. So that's the branches, and one of my favorite ways of just doing a ridiculously quick and dirty tile is using the BCC Plus transform, and you can see here I've also cropped this in just 1 pixel just to make sure that it actually comes in and repeats exactly as I expect it to. And then we've just got the same curl over the top. I've got an expression on curl, but I like it. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, I've got the same kind of ideas. I've got the film stocks over the top. Obviously the color correction inside of After Effects isn't the same as the color correction you have inside of Resolve. So I've just done some very, very basic curves here, just to sort of kick it up a little bit. But there we go. I mean, it's the same setup in After Effects and Resolve, and Premiere's the same as well. You just nest it in, set up your input, And there you go, good to go. That's really one of the nice things about Continuum. You learn it one place, it's the same workflow everywhere. Cool. Any more questions? Or should we what we can let's have a quick look. So taking a wee look here, what I'll do then, I think, because I can see we've got a couple of questions or a couple of comments at least about unlinking inside of Mocha. What I'll do is I'll write those down and we will come back to them a little bit later. How's that for a tease? How's that? Oh, all right. Well, I think what we can do then is before we give away some more prizes, let's tell people where we're at. You're watching Boris FX Live. You can tell that because I say Boris and I say effects. There we go. My t-shirt's there, and we're live. If we've got a bug right over there, or it might be over there, wherever Brian decides to put the bug. There you go. See, I knew he was going to do it because he's just too good. And we are talking Continuum. We've had a little look at Continuum with Mocha. We are going to be looking at Audio Visualizer in a little bit, and we've got a super secret squirrel type of thing coming up a little bit later. I don't know what secret squirrel actually means, but there we go. We're also giving away some stuff. We're talking live. You're asking us questions. We are answering those questions, hopefully, and we're also giving away some stuff. We have already given away one copy of Boris FX Continuum to a lucky winner. And if you haven't already joined our competition, go to borisfxlive.com for your chance to win. Scroll down to the bottom of the page, add in your details. Tippity tappity. Full terms and conditions are available on the website. We have one more subscription of Continuum to give away. I'm going to give that away in about 5 minutes. And we also have the big one, Boris FX Suite. That is everything that we make, including Continuum, Sapphire, Mocha Pro, Silhouette, Optics, Synthesize, Crumple Pop, Particle Illusion. I know that's part of Continuum, but you also get the standalone one, which is also part of Continuum. And Particle Illusion Pro, that's it, Particle Illusion Pro. It's Pro for pros. Or is that pros for pro? I don't know. We're not sure. We're not sure. All right, well, we're giving those away in 5 minutes. But first, I want to talk with Nick about something that is, it's near to his heart, but it's even nearer to my ears. Yes, that's right. This is Pod Talk. Nick,
Yes,
we have a podcast. Well, more specifically, you have a podcast.
yes. Boris FX, we started a podcast called Flow State Stories from the Creative Process. This week we reached episode 19. I can't imagine like how quickly time flies. We started it just after around NAB. Last week's episode featured a astronaut that's been to space, Terry Virts, who also happens to be a filmmaker. Incredible episode. We have other guests on there too. Roseanne Tan, a ACE editor who's done a number of Mr. Robot episodes, Ash Thorpe, and a ton of other incredible creators from all walks of life, from photography to design, Chris Doe, to video editing and production. And just a small secret, I have another 10 in the can, Ben, coming out.
Oh, it's good. I really love them. It's like they're about half an hour each week, directly into your ear holes. Like so interesting. I don't think there has been one yet where I've sort of walked away and gone, oh well, that was something. They've all been like really informative, and it's a great look into the creative mind, or different creative minds, I want to say. And all you have to do to find it is go to the Boris FX website, go to the blog section, and there it is, podcasting. You can listen to it using, well, actually any of your major main pod catchers. Give us one. What's your favorite podcatcher, Nick?
I use Apple Podcasts. That's because I have an iPhone, but it doesn't matter what you have. If you want to go on Spotify, we have it on Spotify, plus a direct RSS feed, like you showed there with the link on Boris FX, the podcast there from our main webpage.
I use the RSS feed because I am an old-fashioned podcast person who will never change the way that I listen to podcasts. But no, it's great. It's really fun. It's really informative. Skip past the first couple of minutes of you and get straight into the meat. It's perfect. It's like every good podcast.
At the 1:30 mark, it never fails that I will be introducing the person that will start our conversation on creativity and their workflow. And I think every single week I've walked away with at least 5 or 6 different ways of looking at things in my own workflow, and how someone manages their own creative process, problem solving, some of the problems that we all face in the industry, from creative burnout to managing and tackling and working with clients. It really is a great group of people from all different disciplines and walks of life within our industry, which I love.
It's one last thing that I'll say about this is that it's really edifying to hear that the problems and the sort of worries and concerns that I have are also the problems, worries, and concerns that everyone else has as well. I think that's really nice, and the successes and those feelings as well. Though there is a sort of a commonality to it all. I really enjoy that. And yeah, you're right. There's always something in there that I go, oh, I like that idea. I'm going to steal that one. Or there's always a little turn of thought that just makes me go, oh yeah, I love that. I'm going to steal that.
I think you said it best, Ben. It's sometimes easy when you're working at your desk away at a computer, whether it be video editing or doing motion graphics, where you can feel siloed, especially if you've working for lots and lots of hours over the span of a week, a month, or a year. And to have that common voice among creators who are experiencing the exact same thing and sharing in that common language is quite a refreshing thing. And I've learned so much, and I can't wait to learn more from the other people who are about to come out.
Absolutely. Yes. Pod people unite.
Yes.
What's the name of it at all again?
It's Boris FX Flow State, Stories from the Creative Process.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Nick.
No
all right. Well, let's give away some stuff. So hopefully we have our second winner loaded up into the tombola. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get that thing rolling around in the background. We're going to start it rolling. I've got an electric tombola now. It's going, it's spinning around. It's almost too fast. Who's the person going to be? Congratulations to our second winner, who is Sarah Lopez or Sarah Lopez. Congratulations to Sarah or Sarah Lopez. You are our second winner. Congratulations. You have won a 1-year subscription to Continuum. And just like our first winner, Alex, I do believe, we will be in contact with you within the next 27.25 hours to tell you how you can collect your prize. So well done, Sarah. I want to say one thing as well. There is still time. Just if you want to win the big one, the Boris FX suite, head over to borisfxlive.com and enter the competition now. Do not delay, do not dilly, do not dally. There will be no dillying nor dallying here. All right, well let's crack on. Let's come up to another sort of example of working with inside of Continuum. And here I'm going to throw over to our Director of Motion Graphics, Mr. John Dickinson. John, welcome to Boris FX Live.
Thanks, Ben, and hi, everyone. One of my roles at Boris FX as design director is to create interesting looks using our software. And that's one of the things I love about using Continuum. There's a range of effects in Continuum that allow me to create interesting looks super fast. So I actually just 10 or 15 minutes ago spent some time just creating a look. And what I'd like to do is recreate that look with you using about 10 or 15 minutes so you can see also how easy it is to use Continuum to create interesting looks. So here's the original shot. And I put a bit of music in there. And this is the look that I came up with. So what we're using here is Audio Visualizer and Color Link mainly. So let's recreate it. So I'm going to just put this into another comp. I'm going to grab my music. Just going to do this quickly. And I'm going to drop my music in there. I've just pre-composed my music because I trimmed it. So there's my music, all right? So what I'm going to do first of all is I want to color grade this shot, and I'm actually going to use Color Link to do that. So if I just do a search in my Effect and Presets panel for Color Link, BCC plus Color Link. So Color Link is designed to be able to sample a separate layer's color to colorize the layer that you've applied the effect to, but you can also use it to grade the shot you've applied it to. So if I don't choose a sample layer, you can see already it's actually changed that shot slightly, so it's using itself. And what I want to do is I want to actually color correct this just by enabling color correct, and I want to bring out all of the saturation. Just like that. And I can probably just play around with the gamma a little bit. And also, if we have a look up here, the sample method is diffuse color, so it's using itself. And under here you can see there's a blur. So if I drop that blur down a bit, I can increase the contrast. If I bring it right down, it actually gets quite contrasty. But so what this is doing, it's kind of like duplicating the footage, desaturating it, blurring it, and then compositing it back on itself using the soft light blend mode. So I kind of like that. It's a nice way to use Color Link to grade a shot without actually using any other effects. So that's a good start. So what I'm going to do now is I want to put some Color Link, put some Audio Visualizer on top of that. So I'm going to use a new solid and just going to name that. Not going to name that, just leave it as black solid. And I'm going to find the Audio Visualizer effect. Audio Visualizer. And it's going to ask me to select an audio layer. So I will do that. I've got my audio layer in here. And there we go. So you can see it's actually responding to the audio there. I'm going to use a preset by clicking on FX Editor. And there's some beautiful presets in here, but I'm going to choose something super basic. This one down here. Just as a starting point. And I'm going to apply that. So that sits over the top. Just like that. Now I actually want to colorize the waveform, the Audio Visualizer waveform, using the color of the shot. So I'm just going to come down and just for a moment, just going to take the color out of that. Okay. And I'm going to use Color Link again. Color Link. Now, of course, Audio Visualizer has its own colorization options, but I want to sample some color from the actual shot that I'm placing the Audio Visualizer over. So just twirl that up. By default, we're using diffuse color. I'm going to choose average. And for my sample layer, I'm going to choose the performer. And for blend mode, I'm going to choose normal. Aha. All right, so at the moment, we're sampling dynamic. And we're sampling full frame. So what I want to do is I want to sample static and I want to sample point radius. So I want to choose a color from this shot. So I'm going to choose her denim jacket. So clicking on center and just choosing that color. So I choose this really nice blue. Okay. And I can move that around. If I really want to pinpoint a specific pixel, I can change the radius, bring it right down, and that way I can zero in on exactly the color that I want. So maybe something like that. So that's static, and I've sampled that color, so that won't change, even if we play this back. So that's looking pretty good. But it would look better if it was circular, and I can do that easily using Audio Visualizer just by enabling polar warp. Boom, look at that. That looks a lot better. And also, of course, we want to just come down and turn on color link again. So that's sitting on top like that. So now we want to reintroduce some color by using Audio Visualizer again, but this time using the diffuse mode. So what I'll do is I will duplicate, and we're going to click on the FX editor. We're going to choose a different preset. So just choose this one's neighbor on the left here. It's also very simple, a little more blocky. Like that, okay? And come down to color link for this one. And we'll come back to diffuse color, and we'll bring blur down to 0. All right. Now I need to change this back to dynamic. And now you can see we're not choosing the first frame. We're actually dynamically sampling that. And that's bringing the color back in. Let's also use, under Audio Visualizer, polar warp. And we're going to just adjust the settings here. Let's bring up the scale and the width, and probably, now we've got it on 8, the resolution. That's as low as it goes. Bring up the height. There we go. And maybe the density. So we're adding more color back in there. We still can't really see it that well. So what we can do is turn on our drop shadow in color link. This will help it pop out from the background like that, and maybe just a little less blur, and maybe a little more opacity there, and that's reintroducing that color. Now we might be able to just scale that a bit more. Obviously there's lots of settings in here that you can fine tune. Now to finish this off, all I want to do is use BCC+ looks, just to give it a quick filmic look here. Click on FX editor, and here I'm just going to cycle through different ones to see if I can find one that I like. Maybe something that pushes it a bit more, something like that. That sits over the top. And that blue one probably has to sit up above. So just stick that on top. I think that's going to make it stand out a little more. And we're at about 8 minutes now, so why don't we just push this a little further? What I'd like to do is maybe have a go with, let's see, curl. I love Continuum's curl effect. So if we apply curl to that, makes it look a little more sort of pencil sketched, you know, a little more sort of cartoony, maybe a little more fun. We can increase distortion amplitude and, you know, the complexity, adjust that. That might be a little too strong sitting on top, so maybe we just put that back underneath. And now I'm thinking maybe we could reintroduce a bit more of the color of the original shot in this layer. So if we come back to color link and change that back to diffuse color, we could also come up and just adjust the audio visualizer a bit more. Maybe just make it a bit thicker, increase the height, come down to polar warp, and we could play around with those settings as well. You can see you can experiment to your heart's content with this. Maybe take it to the outer radius so it's not too strong in the middle. And come back down to color link and play around with the blur settings. So you can see how easy it is to experiment with this. It's very responsive. And the only downside is that you might not know when to stop. All right, so that's around 10 minutes. I promised around 10 to 15. And I think we came up with something quite interesting. So hopefully you found that useful. For now, I'm going to pass back to Ben.
Thank you very much, John. That was great. Brilliant stuff. Yeah, that's a way of using audio visualizer that I hadn't actually thought of before, which was just to use it to kind of colorize a layer. Nick, is that something you've tried before?
I haven't actually tried to experiment colorizing the layer, but seeing John's workflow, it reminded me a bit of what you were just presenting in Resolve um, with that shot, Ben, in the fact
Mm.
that in addition to like the cool colorize and being able to just pull some of the color from the shot there, you could take a step further and integrate it by using Mocha and the parameter-based tracking to have it attached to something in a shot that calls for it if required. And then there's
Yeah, I think.
another section.
Oh
I
no,
was
I
just
was
going to
going to
add
say
there.
that there's a section on the. I can't remember if you've done a tutorial about it, but I've definitely seen it on the Continuum main Continuum video, which is
Yep.
announcing audio visualizer, where there is that face that's doing that, and the audio visualizer is following the face. I like that.
Yeah, so you could have it follow the face using Mocha parameter tracking. And then there's another section in Audio Visualizer, which allows you to do some 3D movement. So if you wanted to rotate that in 3D space, either on your X, Y, or Z axis, you can do that as well with Audio Visualizer. And in addition, like combining multiple audio visualizers, John set up it really nicely where what we have are the ability in some of those presets to combine 1, 2, even 3 audio visualizers together for an end result to get some really interesting looks.
Yeah, I think I'm getting that as another theme of Continuum, is that Continuum effects work quite nicely as solo effects, but they actually work really nicely when you start to chain them together and start to do some sort of more creative things with them. I love it. I love it. I think we've got John's. If you haven't watched John's sort of walkthrough videos,
Mhm.
they're definitely a joy to behold, because he takes a shot, and instead of like going step by step and showing you how to do everything, he'll just like pick it apart and just go, well, for this section here, I used these effects and I use them in this different way, and you sort of build up in that sort of area. Those walkthroughs are great.
Yes.
And I think we've got an Alien Romulus walkthrough that is available now as well. And
Yeah.
the nice thing about those is that they also include projects as well. So if you want 3D file, 3D Blender files, and After Effects projects, and all the other stuff, you can actually really pick those apart.
Yeah.
We should probably do more of those.
No, they're great. The Alien Romulus one that just came out, and one if you're looking for one that's continuum focused, although it's from a while ago, uh, John did a Into the Spider-Verse, like a title design, and that uses a ton of continuum stacked effects in the end results. And those project files are also available on the website, I believe, free for download, like you
Yes.
mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, there's a ton of stuff. Why are you watching this still? Go open up a new tab. Don't close this tab, please. Open up a new tab. Go to borisfx.com and just explore all of the free fun
Yeah.
stuff we've got. Come on, come on. All right. So what I'm going to do now is something that I should have been doing the whole stream. Do you know what? If you're still here, it means we're doing something right. Can you give us one of those, please? Just
Two
please,
thumbs up.
pretty please.
2 thumbs up.
If you're not liking the stream, there's something that looks like that as well. You can give us one of those. I really think that we deserve a little like, please, pretty please. It keeps the lights on. Well, actually, it keeps the lights on everywhere apart from Brian's house, where the lights have gone off. He's in the middle of a storm at the moment. So cross fingers that we actually survive the rest of the stream. Speaking of surviving the rest of the stream, B Watch the infestation of bees has, well, it's still there. They're still there. They're humming away. I think me and my black and yellow friends, we're going to be good today. I think we've established a nice relationship here. If you don't understand what my bee friends are talking about, please go back to the beginning of the stream. I was genuinely worried. All right, well let's carry on a little bit more. We've got another couple of things that we're going to show. What I think is, we've got another demo coming up from Nick. Do you want to just introduce this one just a little bit, and then we'll head into it?
Yeah, continuing on what we talked about earlier in this stream, Ben, just when you look at a continuum effect, there are so many different elements that exist inside of that. And I think one great area to explore is BCC Transitions, where we have multiple things that you can do in addition to what your host can do. And I don't want to spoil the rest because a past version of me is about to take you through that.
Okay, well, let me introduce you that then. Okay. Nick from the past, can you hear me? Please tell us what's going to happen in the past. Over to you, Roll VT.
All right, thanks, Ben. I think one thing that I love about Continuum Transitions is the amount of control that you have compared to your NLE. And one of those unique offerings happens to be on-screen controls that you can use to ease in, ease out your transition, and even control the speed in the middle. Now, depending on the type of transition that you add onto your edit point, this can provide you a variety of different feels from how you move from your A to your B shot. And let's take a look at some of these features directly inside of Premiere Pro. Okay, I'm here in my Premiere Pro sequence, and I've got two clips here where I would like to add a transition to. That of a parkour artist, followed by a skydiver. I'll escape out of that full screen playback, and you're going to find Continuum Transitions, in this case in your Effects tab. Under the Video Transitions category, there's a dedicated folder for all of the BCC transitions, and there are a ton. We're going to remain focused on the BCC+ transitions, and the reason for this is it gives us access to an effects editor, which is a dedicated workspace for controlling the transition and being able to play it back in real time once those frames are cached. To see this, let's select BCC+ Crash Zoom. I'll apply it to the edit point of the clip, move my playhead over the A and B clip, and with the transition selected, in Effect Controls, click on the Effects Editor badge. If I draw your attention to the left-hand side, here are a bunch of presets that we can choose. And before we do, in the timeline, you'll see a little green line, and this is identifying if frames are cached. The minute I start to play back, we'll see frames get cached to memory, and as it goes through it, it's going to get a lot faster for us to be able to preview the current default crash zoom that's been applied. And I can click now through various transitions here, and you'll see that though starts to cache new frames because I've tweaked the parameters of this effect, which I can see over here to the right. They're being tweaked just because I'm choosing a new preset. Let's go back to the default. And one thing about Crash Zoom that I want to draw your attention to is it zooms in from one effect to another. There are several things going on here, but first, before we get into controlling its speed, I do want to have the parkour subject exit the frame close to the center. And I can do that in the parameter section under Crash Zoom by just controlling the center value. By moving this over to the right, my subject is now going to exit the transition at this point. And I'll want to try to do this over the center point, which can be tricky because if we drag the center too much, the subject might not exit where we want him to be. This looks pretty good, and I'm happy with the entry of the skydiver at this part of the frame. There's another really unique thing going on here, which I want to draw your attention to once I shifted the center, and that's what's happening around the edges of the frame. if we look under prism colors, there's an edge mode, and that's set to reflect. If I set this to transparent, this is what would happen if we just controlled the transition without any edge mode applied. We just see black on the edges of the frame as we shift the position of the clip. So having this reflection, which is also enabled in several Continuum effects, can be helpful to sell what's going on with this rapid fire transition. In addition to reflect, we have a repeat mode. We can see during repeat right now, several different horizontal lines being repeated at the edges of the frame versus the automatic reflection. And for the fast-paced nature of this movement, this could be a handy thing to enable. Now, in addition to that, as I continue to play back and move my cursor over the viewer, I see that I have these on-screen controls that I was talking about. There are two lines associated with crash zoom, and what we want to focus on is the yellow lines. This happens to be the easing. The problem is with most default transitions that are native to nonlinear editor, you can't control how you ramp in and ramp out of the transition. And here we have these controls that allow us to do so. So with crash zoom in particular, I want to be able to ease in to the crash and then ease out of the crash. And I do this with these handles on the bottom left and right. This is going to allow us to ease in and to see what I'm doing as I make a modification with these on-screen controls. I'll twirl down the settings for the animation tuning. So I'm adjusting the ease in to a full value of 100, and I'll do the same thing with an ease out. So I'm just going to press play. And another cool thing about working in the effects editor is we could click on this AB button, which allows us to see the original clip without the transition compared to the changes that we just made. I'll stop playback and get out of this AB mode. Now, in addition to having ease controls at the beginning and end of a transition, we also have it in the middle, or easing the mid. This value is set so low right now that there is no easing. And this is really good for crash zoom because we do want to have that crash as we get to the pivot point or the middle point of this transition. In some cases, it might be desirable to not have this, and we can adjust this on-screen control to make the ease a lot greater. But what we'll see as an end result as I play this back is now a stutter as it approaches the middle. And again, not serving to be that crash that is desired. I'll stop playback, and an easy way to reset any of these animation tuning or any parameter value is to go next to that property and click on the square icon. So we have our easing. And another thing to note is that several Continuum effects have multiple parameters stacked together to give you an end result. With the case of crash zoom, we have additional blur that we could add to the image by boosting motion blur under the motion blur section. And one of my favorites, which is prism colors. To see prism colors in action, we'd first of all want to add a bit of a weight. And then by adding either a smear offset or a delta angle, that smear will cause a bit of that prismatic separation in the red, green, and blue channels for our crash zoom. Now, there is another section I want to talk about, but I'm going to do that showing a different Continuum effect. So what we're going to do is apply this crash zoom, see it comes back over the host. And if I select the transition again, but this time in effect controls, select the name of crash zoom, I just wanted to show you that these easing controls, on-screen controls, are available for you inside the program monitor. And there's one thing that we skipped over, unique to crash zoom, which is this purple line. And this is the dissolve duration. So I'll twirl down the animation tuning just to show you that dissolve duration. And it just adds a longer dissolve across the actual crash, mixed with the other effects like the prismatic look through prism, not to mention the smear blur that we added. Now, showing another example, I'll just head to another timeline here. I have two other clips that I'd like to add a different transition to. Heading back to my effects tab, under BCC Transitions, we have several other effects which are swishes, and they are very similar to different types of wipes that you might be familiar with. Let's go to Swish Prism, and I'll apply that to the edit point over these two clips. Let's just do a full screen playback to see that we get a wipe from one clip to another, and it's mixed with a prismatic look. Now, you might not be able to see that wipe. And this is, again, where we have so many controls inside of a continuum effect. Sometimes you want to dial them down to see the base look. In this case, what I'm going to do is bring down the prism shift to 0. So there is no separation. And the other thing is I'm going to also bring down the blur. So now we can see this roll of a clip from left to right. And right now it's just rolling once, but we do have the option to control roll speed, which will roll this multiple times. And in fact, I'm going to do this 5 just to make this a little bit more energetic and crank it up based on the footage that I'm working on. We've got that roll that repeats itself 5 different times. And again, if we're not happy how we come in and out of the swish, you can select the name of the effect and grab on the easing in and easing out controls. There is no control for the middle in this case, but here we have that swish prism wipe. Now that we've affected the base, before I turn back on the prismatic and blur effect, we also have a dedicated section for color correction in many BCC Plus effects that can be stacked on top of the base transition. Just above animation tuning is color correct. I'm going to set the saturation, in this case, to -100. And we'll just notice the saturation dials down every time that we roll from one clip to another. We can also integrate hue and several of these other parameters. In fact, I'll just do a temperature change as well. You'll notice that temperature change doesn't happen until the transition stops and we ease into it based on those on-screen controls. Very, very cool. And now we can use that color correction and easing our base roll and start to add back in a blur, which we have several different blur qualities, not to mention, in this case, that prism shift that we had it as well to create the swish prism. As you can see, Continuum Transitions are definitely worth a look inside of your NLE based on the on-screen controls that you have available for easing, as well as controlling duration, not to mention the color correction that's built in. We also took a look at some of the edge modes and several other features that make it a really stacked effect for your next effects workflow.
Well, thank you very much, past Nick, and welcome future Nick back to Boris FX Live. That was cool. Can I just before we actually get to the proper stuff on this, can I just say that I love the fact that whenever we go back in the past to do this sort of stuff, we have to hit you with that anime ray to give you the full anime hair. That's the only way I can tell you two apart.
I know a tool we can use for some background separation there, just to add the little halo, depending on the transition that you want to use.
That would be very good. Maybe we'll see that in about 5 minutes time. Ooh, is that a tease?
Ooh,
I don't know. I genuinely don't know if that's a tease anymore. There are a couple of questions that came through. Like people loved that, and I love that because just to make it more about me for 1 second. Sorry, I use those on-screen controls a huge amount when I was developing some of the presets for some of these things here, just because I think that just having a sort of boring linear wipe loses a lot of the dynamics when the whole point of a transition is that we're moving from one place to another, and most of the time when I'm using a transition, I'm doing it in a kind of dynamic context. So sort of a linear transition is a little bit so just being able to go and like crank up and experiment with what those easings are directly on screen is just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I remember, first of all, I think you're talking about a lot of the swish transitions that came out a few releases ago. I remember seeing several of your presets, Ben, with all of those easing values tackled in, which just adds some light movement, especially with some of those rolls, depending on if the directions from left to right or top to bottom, and you have multiple roles, not just one, maybe two or three. And I think with some of the presets as well, I played around with some of the color correction. Like depending on what you're using it for, having it dip or have that introduction of additional color, whether going to a hue or going completely desaturated, could just add an extra layer when you're moving from one clip to the other, the A to the B side.
Yeah, I like it. It adds a bit more texture to it. I think that's one of the nice things about these transitions is there's always
Yeah.
scope for adding different texture to kind of beef it up a little bit. One of the questions we got, or one of the actually one of the statements that we got in chat came from Michael about using Continuum, or actually that he was using Sapphire transitions for doing linear borders or linear wipes with a border.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to quickly hop into Continuum just to show how that whole idea has been kind of kicked up even more. So if we can just share the screen a little bit, which we do have the technology for this. There we go. We just needed a cube wipe.
Yeah, this is the linear wipe inside of Continuum.
So this is just a simple, like this is the simple linear wipe, and it's got like a border in there. But here's the fun thing. It's like no, this was the one. Yeah, I made one of these ones simply for me to do to use with tutorials, because I was always doing these same things. And then we just started experimenting a little bit more and went, well, okay, if we can do one color, why can't we do three colors? And we got like all these sort of different ways of kind of cranking through and using different border colors in here. It looks a little bit silly when we're just going to black, but actually some of these work just so nicely going between different clips. So if you haven't tried out linear wipe, do it now.
It comes with three, like you mentioned, three borders, and having the offset position controls as well as separate control for the thickness of each borders allows for a lot of experimentation for your linear wipes, and not to mention, of course, being able to rotate and decide how this wipe is going to come from one end of the screen to the other. So just adds some extra value in terms of that experimentation. And of course, like several of the ones that we're looking at here, Ben, you created these presets, which is great and a good starting point in the effects editor, and then changing those colors depending on the production or brand that you're working with.
Yeah, I know it sounds really stupid just to say check out linear wipe, but actually, like the linear wipe here it's kind of fun, kind of useful, and I'm really glad that we've got these ones here that just save me from having to recreate this every single time that I want to do a straightforward product wipe.
And it's such a great, it's a utility-based transition that Boris FX use here all the time to show before and afters.
Yeah.
It's a great way to show the existing or initial state of a clip, and then through the wipe, show the effects or the end results. And in some cases, using multiple linear wipes to break down from the original to the 6 or 7 steps to achieve that end result.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to the last section, shall we? If we're going for linear wipes, that was
great,
that
Brian.
was definitely
Thank you.
that was definitely one of them. Thank you. I just want to say that was not a Continuum linear wipe, nor even close to it. But thank you very much for just showing us what a wipe looks like. We're not going to stop now, are we? Right, we have just one more small section left before we are giving away our big giveaway. Yes, we are giving away the Boris FX Suite to one lucky winner. They will be joining the 2 other prizes that we've been giving away already on this stream. If you haven't already done so, there's 2 things you have to do. Firstly, go to borisfxlive.com, scroll down to the bottom of the page, register your details there for your chance to win. Secondly, if you haven't already done so, give us that little thumbs up. You know you want to. If you don't want to, there's one of those. It makes me cry. but I understand some people like watching me cry. There are websites dedicated to it. I was going to say something a bit more fun and interesting there. I've forgotten it. I've blocked it out of my head. So we will come back. I'll tell you what we'll do. We will take a look at another last little tutorial. This was created by someone I call Past Ben. This was a more innocent time. This was before the bee infestation had made itself known. Please take it away, Past Ben. See you again. Yes, thank you very much. Well, in this example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through how we can use those edge controls that we saw back in the light example and do some very different things with those. I'm also going to show you how we can start to expand that out using mattes and masks and sort of selective effects. So if we take a quick look at this example here, it's about 200 frames long. I won't show you the whole thing, but we've got a big sweaty guy doing sweaty guy things, and I'm going to come up and go to our perspective and take a look at transform here. This is probably the easiest place that we can have a look at the edge mode properly. So if I take a look now, we've got our edge mode now is set to transparent. We have repeat, reflect and wrap, exactly how we had in light. So I'm going to just crop to the left. And here, if we take a look now, we can see because our edge mode is set to transparent, we have some nice transparent pixels. We set that to repeat, we get this effect. And I really love this effect. It sort of drags the last good pixel and just drags it over to the side. So we get this sort of streaking effect. And I'm a big fan of this. I like this. Yeah, and then we also have reflect and wrap as well. So reflect, and wrapped over from this edge here. But I kind of like the this repeat here. I think this is actually kind of cool for some nice sort of transition work. So just dragging that over. Big fan. But there comes a time where we want to sort of limit these effects to only various sort of small places. Now with Mocha in transform, we only have the parameter tracking. We don't have that same PixelChooser that we had in other modules. So we only have the Mocha parameter tracking. What can we do if I want to actually isolate him out? If you also have a copy of Silhouette, or if you have the Boris FX suite, this is really, really useful. I'm just going to duplicate my image here with Control or Command D, and I'm going to come into Silhouette. Let's pop into Silhouette here and open up the interface. Working resolution must be 1:1. Thank you very much for reminding me to set that to full. And let's try that again. Now, just to give you a bit of historical context for Silhouette, if you've never seen it before, Silhouette is a piece of software that has been known as a workhorse in the paint and roto sector. So it's used by all the big, Hollywood studios, all the big production companies for doing high quality roto and paint, and also a bit compositing as well. But in Silhouette 2024, there was some new tools introduced that made creating up fast masks really, really easy. Let's come to, I'll start on the first frame here. And I'm going to come up to Easy Mask. Now, if you've seen me work in optics before, you'll know what Easy Mask is. It's a case of me scribbling in where I want to keep in, just with a left click. And if I right click, I can decide what areas are counting as a background. And now if I have this processed out, so the viewer set to output, and hit A to come in and show my alpha, you can see it creates up. You can see it creates up a nice little alpha channel based off of this dude. There we go. And I can sort of add in a few more bits and bobs to that to kind of refine that up a little bit more as I need to. Now, I don't actually need this to be 100% accurate in this case, because when I'm working with Easy Mask, it actually only works on a single frame. So if I wanted to have a quick mask that propagates across all the frames, what I want to use instead is, let's hit tab and go to Matte. I can use Matte Assist ML. And what that's going to do is it's going to take the input from the Easy Mask. Let's make sure it's going to take all the inputs from the Easy Mask. There we go. Connect that to the keyframes here. It's going to take the input from the Easy Mask and it's going to create up not just a single frame out of it, but if I hit play on that, it's going to create a nice moving matte across all of the frames. So it's going to take that single frame and then propagate it across the rest of the frames here. And we can sort of see it's fairly fast. You know, we're working Ultra HD images. It's doing about 2.5 frames a second here. Not too bad. I'll stop that there for a sec. And we can see the mask that it creates, or the matte that it creates, is kind of a little bit blocky. It's sort of almost a binary matte, black or white. There is a little bit of anti-aliasing at the edges to kind of help to smooth things off, but you know, interesting things like hair, they get lost along the way. So what I'm going to do along here is I'm going to create up a little trimap node. So what the trimap node does is it is going to add a little bit of grey, a little bit of softness. Well, not a little bit of softness. It's going to add a little bit of grey, a grey border into the image here. Let's see that there. That's probably a little bit too big. I say a little bit, it's going to be massively too big. And I can reposition this here. And what this is going to do is I can use this now as an input to try and clean up some of that hair detail. And that's going to be Power Matte. So with Power Matte, I can feed the trimap into here. I can feed the Matte Assist into here. And let's tell it to use that auxiliary trimap now. And we can see if we compare that to the hair in the Matte Assist compared to the trimap, it's a lot nicer. And I'm happy with this. I think that's looking pretty good. On those few frames, yeah, look at that. It's pretty nice. So we can use this directly out of After Effects, or directly in After Effects, I should say. As long as we have that last node that I want to piped into the output, I can do that there. Or I can also export this out as a matte. Now I'm going to do that, but I'm going to do that off camera. Okay, so back in After Effects, I have my matte here. I'm going to set my track matte on the main footage to be that there. And let's make sure that is set to Luma. There we go. Because I've rendered that a black and white key, and that's looking pretty good. It's actually a lot faster to do it this way as well, to render out those mattes when you need them, rather than let Silhouette have to calculate that all the time. I will just move this all into a pre-comp here. Let's turn that back on. So now we have the main footage, which is the whole thing, plus the little pre-comp, which is our keyed footage. So we come back into that same thing, the perspective here. And if I do repeat again and just do that same stuff that I did with the cropping, let's not, we'll come to the left. So now we're just cropping out that the main sort of subject, the main actor here. If I turn on my background one more time, you sort of see the effect that we can start to get here. Just tweaking that up, and I'll show you an example of how this works in Motion as well. Another thing that I like to do when we've got this is what I call an effect sandwich. So I have like a clean version of something over the top, and then we'll take a different effect. What should we choose here? maybe a prism. I don't know. There we go. And load up an effect from the browser. Something big. There we go. And now we've got the base layer right at the bottom. We've got our keyed footage with the prism effect, or whatever effect you want to put on there in the middle, and then we have a clean version of that over the top. So that can give us some kind of really nice, interesting little looks there. And let's take a quick look at a couple of pre-rendered effects that I've done with this same idea in mind. So that's one of the things I really like about Continuum is being able to experiment once we've got these little pieces into place. So as soon as you've got some form of keying or way of sort of limiting effect, whether that's the PixelChooser that's built into a lot of the effects, in fact most of the effects, or whether you're creating up an external mat in another sort of way, that could actually be the After Effects rotor brush if you wanted to, or you know, I really like the silhouette matte assist. That's, you know, completely up to you. The important thing is that once you've got those in, you can then sort of let your imagination run wild, create weird sort of transitions, you know, creative kind of crackly distortion effects, you know, whatever your heart sort of desires. That's really where I like to sort of just experiment, see what happens, and then maybe sort of bring it down a little bit at the very end. Well, that's a very quick look at what essentially started out as us looking at the edge controls and the edge mode options there, and then sort of turned into something a little bit bigger. But that's enough from me. I will send you back to me and to Nick in the future. All right, I'll see you again very soon. Oh, we are back. We are back in the present. Or actually, if you're watching the replay of this live stream, then we are back in the past again. But it's a different past. It's a past that that hasn't. I don't know. One of the things when we're doing all this time travel stuff, it's actually really difficult for the people in mission control. So I've just gotten word from Brian, who is our director today, that he has no power at all. The storm has not only knocked out his normal power, but every computer now is just slowly going dark as I waste time explaining this to you. So I think what we're going to do is I'm gonna go and sort of thank all of our guests. We're gonna give away the last prize of the evening. Then I think we will call this one a good stream if we can get through the last few minutes. What do you reckon, Nick?
I think that's a great idea. And I only wanted to make a comment. That's like such a great way to bring everything home, with sort of using silhouette and continuum effects in a transition standpoint for a given isolated layer. Next time we'll just have to do it with fire going on in the background of a webinar.
Absolutely. I think we'll do that on the next webinar.
The next one, yeah.
I should say, if you want to keep up to date with what the next topics of the live streams are going to be, you should always go to borisfxlive.com. We keep all of our secrets there. Or of course, you want to head over to our Discord channel. That's www.borisfxdiscord.com. Brian, please do not bring up the graphic for this. We actually have John in the chat now. Just do remember www.borisfxdiscord.com. Remember the www, or it's not going to go. No, I said no. Right. Let's knock this one on the head, shall we? It's been a thrill today. We've seen so much. I wish we could go on longer, but we are running on batteries at the moment. Nick, do you want to give away the last prize? I've given away the other two.
Yeah, I can totally give away the last prize. I'm happy to.
So this is good. Do you know how to work the tombola? That's the thing. Okay. Take it away.
And woohoo! Of course, I get the name. I don't want to butcher this, but Qualo Montez. Congratulations. You've just won yourself Boris FX Suites 1-year subscription.
I think that if history has taught us anything, it's that people don't mind us horribly butchering their names as long as they've won a prize.
Exactly.
So yeah, congratulations to I'd say Qualo as well. Apologies if that's not your name, but you join the annals of people whose names I have horribly mispronounced and then given away free software to. So congratulations to Qualo. Congratulations to all of our prize winners today. We will be in contact within the next 26.5 hours to tell you how you can claim your prizes. So we know where you are, we know where you live. Actually, we don't know where you live. We know what country you live in. We can geolocate everything else from there, apparently, with something I call an email address. So yes, our crack team of prize givers will be on their way to give you your prizes very soon. Nick, final thoughts?
The only thing I was thinking is if there are any avid Media Composer users here today, or people who are really liking what was being shown in Premiere Pro, we've got some free training on Continuum that goes through several of these workflows that we demonstrated in detail. That's available online. We can check our Boris FX Learn page for a 4-hour course on Avid, and there's a 2.5-hour course on Premiere Pro, which I'll get the link to and try to post in the live stream chat before this was done. But I really liked kind of covering some of these unique features in Continuum, and from edge mode to just being able to work with that really large mask as well as tracking workflow amongst all of the effects.
And it was really nice to seeing it in lots of different hosts as well.
Yeah.
You know, like we said earlier, once you learn Continuum one place, it works the same in other places as well. So enjoy. All right. Well, thank you very much, Nick, for joining us again. Thank you very much, John, for your presentation as well. And of course, thank you very much, Brian, in Mission Control. And thank you very much to my new bee friends. Hopefully we can all be friends. I don't know. This is it. This is it. If I don't come back to the next live stream and the thing sitting in my in this chair here is a 6-foot tall bee, you know that I didn't survive the bee apocalypse. But if this is the last time that we do speak, thank you very much. It means a lot that you are here for these live streams, and I really want to sort of thank every single of you. Hopefully at the next live stream, and if not, it's been a pleasure. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.